Let's
All
do
right.
it.
I am here in Hopkinsville with Alissa Keller, the executive director of the, I always get this wrong, no,
Start with the museums.
Museums of Historic Hopkinsville and Christian County.
That's us.
Yeah, I'm getting better at this.
Yeah.
And we are standing in the Edgar Cayce exhibit,
The one, the only.
the one, the only, because his birthday's coming up,
It is March 18th.
March 18th. So,
Yes, Edgar Cayce was born March 18th, 1877, in a little village, we'll say a little hamlet called Beverly, Kentucky.
Beverly, Kentucky, all right.
Which our dear friend William Turner, the Christian County historian, always says it's about 7 miles south of the spot we're keeping warm right now. So about 7 miles that way from
Okay.
where we are, in downtown Hopkinsville. Born to a big farming family, even though his father wasn't quite a great farmer, but grew up in the county, out in the country.
Yeah.
And then discovered as a kid that he had some unique gifts.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that and jump forward a little bit to, because I know there's kind of an incident when he's a father, right, that kind of solidifies some of this, having to do with one of his sons.
Yes, but that's kind of on down the line.
That's further down. Okay,
yes.
so I'm jumping too far ahead.
Yes. So
All
one of the most well-known stories of Edgar Cayce and his special gift has to do with when he was a kid in school. He didn't have much formal schooling, formal education, but he went to Beverly Academy, which was a one-room schoolhouse in Beverly. The building itself still stands.
Okay.
And he was having a really hard time with his spelling lesson, is the way the story goes. And he was trying his best to learn this one word. I think he had to write it over and over and over again. He was sitting with his dad at the kitchen table, and he could not get the word. The word was cabin.
Cabin.
Not real complicated.
Yeah.
Couldn't get it. And kind of differing stories. Either something in him said, just take a break, or he came up with it somehow on his own. And he just begged his dad to just let him have a minute and take a break and to rest. I think we could all learn a little from that. It worked really well for Edgar, though. He took a rest with his head on his book. And when he woke up from a little nap, he could spell cabin. He could spell every word in the book. His father would turn to the back of the book, and before he could land on a page, Edgar could start reading every word on the page. So he figured out that he could sleep on a book and know everything inside.
Okay, so
right?
that's the earliest
That's
kind of indications that he has a.
That's the earliest big indication.
Yeah.
Before that, he would talk about little people, is what he called them, kind of like imaginary friends, but they had full backstories, and these were the spirits, the playmates that he had as a child. He also would talk about seeing his grandfather's spirit after his grandfather died, in the tobacco barn where they used to hang out. And his grandmother was very encouraging of this and told him not to be scared, and that it was it was okay, and to that anything that was coming to him was something good. And so he just needed to embrace it.
Just go with it.
He did. And so he was supposedly visited by an angel when he was little. And the angel told him he had a gift and asked him what he wanted to do with it. And he said he wanted to help people, especially children and especially the sick. And so that's what this, he's 10 years old at this point, something like that. It's going to take a while to get to that point, but that's what he ends up doing with his life.
Okay.
In a pretty unique way.
Yeah. So he was here in Hopkinsville.
Yes, so the family moved, his whole family moved to town, that big 7 mile move. Well, the first thing he did here, he worked at a bookstore. He was everyone's favorite books clerk because he could memorize the inventory very quickly. He could look at indexes of books and know what was in them, I put them to his head, whatever he had to do. And he was really fun and social and just kind of became a man about town, started dating a girl, all those things. And then he lost his voice. That's a big part of the story.
Okay.
And not lost his voice like laryngitis, like vocal paralysis. He didn't speak for about 9 months. He would walk around town with a pad of paper and a pencil so that he could communicate with people. He ends up leaving his job at the bookstore. Book clerks aren't real great if they can't talk. He starts working in the back room, in the dark room of a photographer studio. That's how he starts his photography career. And he still is, maintaining this presence as a young dude in his 20s in Hoptown. Until a show at the theater. It was the Holland's Opera House. there was a performer who came who I've seen him described as Hart, H-A-R-T, Hart the Laugh Man or the Laugh King. And he
Okay.
was, among other things, a hypnotist. And this is turn of the century, early 1900s, 1901. And hypnotism, mesmerism, it was called. It was a big deal. And he did a show and demonstrated hypnosis in front of a huge crowd of people. And the way the story goes is that he asked for a volunteer. Somehow Edgar Cayce gets involved in this. Everybody in town knows he can't talk. When he's under hypnosis, he speaks. And when they wake him up, he can't talk again.
Okay.
And it's this whole big deal. There was a man there who was an osteopath. He was he had kind of gotten a medical degree of sorts through the mail, done some studying and had in osteopathy. He started working with Edgar one-on-one. His name was Al Lane, and Lane figured out that again, every time if he was hypnotized, he could talk. When Cayce woke up, he couldn't. And he would get him to kind of talk for a little while afterwards. It was like this ongoing treatment. Finally, while Cayce was in a trance, while he was hypnotized, he was speaking. So Lane just asked him what he needed to do to be able to talk after he woke up.
Yeah.
And the way they said it happened in this house on 7th Street in Hopkinsville, his parents were in the room, that the voice coming out of him told them to loosen his collar and I think his cuffs of his sleeves, and to tell his body to direct blood flow to his neck, to his throat. And that after his neck swelled
Yeah.
and got red, once it kind of came back down to normal, to tell the body to restore normal blood flow and then wake him up. So they did. And they watched his neck swell and not huge, but swell up and get red. And then he woke up, he coughed, and he could talk. He didn't talk super strong, but he could talk. And he could talk for a while. And then he would have to have another one of these treatments. And so he worked with Lane on and off for a number of years. Some people like doing, interpretations of his life and looking back on it, say it's because he was given a gift and he needed to use his voice and he wasn't. And so his voice was silenced until he could use it in the way that he was supposed to.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, he ends up leaving Hopkinsville and moving to Bowling Green, Kentucky, where he was working at a bookstore and at a photography studio. Or, excuse me, he was working at a photography store above a bookstore, and giving readings and trying to figure things out. He would come back and forth to Hopkinsville working with Lane. He had some really monumental readings that he did for some family that kind of changed his perspective on it. He didn't know what it was. He didn't know whether it was going to do harm or good.
Yeah.
And after he gave a reading for his wife's family, a cousin, that saved a baby's life, basically, he decided that there must be something to it.
I think that's what I was thinking about at the beginning was that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And he did readings for his son too, a few years later as well.
Yeah.
And decided, that this must be something that he needed to really lean into.
Yeah.
So he did, and he moves back to Hopkinsville for a period of time. He's only here a couple of years, runs a photography studio here, and does readings on the side with a local homeopathic doctor at this point, a guy named Dr. Wesley Ketchum. Ketchum does not turn out to be like the knight in shining armor of the story, for sure. But does readings with Ketchum. They get in kind of a bad way, and he moves. Cayce moves away, and after 1912 doesn't ever live in Hopkinsville long term again.
Gotcha.
He ends up in Alabama, but eventually in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Why Virginia Beach? Because that's where the readings told him to go. That's what we call the trances, like when you go into these trances, readings. He would give readings for himself, and it said that his soul needed to be close to water.
I can relate.
Same.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that Virginia Beach was specifically the spot. So
And there's still connections to him over there now.
yes, absolutely. So his big dream, I'm getting ahead of myself. So when he would give readings for people, overwhelmingly the readings were for health issues. So someone would be sick. It's kind of like a common theme. Like someone would get sick, they would go to the doctor, they'd see specialists, nobody had an answer, and then they would reach out to Cayce. Yeah. And he didn't know anything about medicine at all. But he could go into a trance, and while in this trance could diagnose illness and essentially offered treatment recommendations.
And they didn't even have to be there, right?
Oh,
Like he
no.
did it all almost all remotely, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first real remote worker,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was good if he knew where they would be,
Okay.
but I don't know that that was even necessary.
And he did some for some pretty big names too,
He
right?
did. I mean, there are at least indications that he did readings, not necessarily health readings, but technology readings for, I think it was Edison and Tesla. There is some thought that he might have done readings for Woodrow Wilson over time. I mean, like he was doing some big stuff.
Yeah.
But as
And
far
never took money for any of this, right?
he would take money.
Oh, okay.
Money was not required.
I got you.
He never really
He didn't
need money.
charge for it, but
Not
he would take money if
necessarily.
somebody offered it, kind of thing.
I think it was one of those that like
I mean, he had to keep a real job, or I shouldn't say a real job, but he kept like a more 9 to 5 ish kind of thing. Or
he
the
was
photography.
he was a photographer for a number of years. Once he gets to Virginia Beach, he's really focused on the readings.
Okay.
And giving the readings, and that's when he opens a hospital. But he has a lot of external funding. Like he's got people who support him,
Yeah.
who are helping to kind of underwrite, what he's doing, if nothing else, and provide a space and a well-being so that he can do this goodness that he's trying to give to the world. He gave over 14,000 documented readings in his lifetime. More than 9,000 of those were health readings, physical readings they're called, and almost all of those are documented and still exist at Virginia Beach. And they have been indexed and cataloged so they can be searched. Every body, literally every person and every body is different. So depending on like the chemistry of the body, recommendations may vary. Like some readings say coffee is good for you and some readings say coffee is not. And it kind of had to do with that one person.
Yeah.
For the most part, coffee is good as long as you don't put cream in it. But as someone who loves that.
Again, agreed. See,
No.
we disagree. We just.
But some of the hot coffee and the dairy would curdle in your system and it was bad for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's sometimes called the father of holistic medicine because of the approach that came through the readings to health had to do with treating like the whole person. If someone was sick, they might have recommendations to take certain vitamins and supplements, but to also exercise and to meditate and to eat certain things, so like different, an approach that treated a whole person and not just a symptom, for lack of other word. It was a big deal. His big goal, his big dream was to open a hospital because you got to think. Let's say you're super sick, can't get an answer anywhere,
Yeah.
so you reach out to a psychic, and you get a reading done, and now you get a treatment plan from a psychic, and they're not necessarily easy, and it's not like, oh well, here's what you can get a hold of. No, it's just what you need.
Yeah.
And so now you've got to find someone to help administer this treatment, and that was not always the easiest thing to do. So his big dream was to open a hospital, and there was actually some work to try to open one nearby Hopkinsville that fell through, but a hospital was open in Virginia Beach in 1928, and it had a lot of funding from some businessmen in New York City.
Yeah.
Who lost a lot of money in the stock market crash of 1929. Also, the head doctor, who was from Tennessee, but he had married Edgar's wife's aunt, the one that they gave the reading for the baby. Anyway, he passed away, and so things kind of started to fall apart very quickly in the hospital itself. But the dream was that Edgar could give a reading. There was a doctor to administer the treatment. They could give follow-up readings, until people got better. It lasted that way about a year, maybe a little longer, and overwhelmingly it went really well.
Yeah.
The records, there's a lot of correspondence back and forth between people who got readings and the ones that were managing it. And if people followed the treatment, they got better. I mean, universally.
Yeah.
Following the treatment's not easy.
Yeah.
But if you did,
then,
you got better.
Yeah.
After the hospital closed, though, they kept open a center, and Edgar kept giving readings for people. There just wasn't someone like a doctor on site to administer them, and he did that until he died in 1945, until 1944.
Wow.
So all the way really through the bulk of World War II, even.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and the readings go from physical to their technology readings and business readings. They're the life readings that deal with past lives. I mean, it runs a gamut. It's
All kinds of
all kinds of things. It's fascinating. And it all comes from a man
All comes from right here in
right here,
Kentucky.
right here in
And
Cook
he's
County.
buried here.
He is buried here.
So he's born in Beverly and buried in Hopkinsville. And
Yes.
yeah.
And I asked somebody why recently, and that's what they wanted. He and his wife wanted to be buried here and they're buried with her family, not with the Cayces. I only say that because if you go to our cemetery, he's not. You can look at all the Cayce plots, and you'll never find him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it took me a minute to find it. You told me good directions, but then I didn't
There's a
know
trick.
exactly where to look.
Yeah.
But I found it eventually because it had a lot of interesting.
like grave goods.
Yeah, people left a lot of little trinkets and I don't know if you'd say thank yous, but
Memorializing who he
yeah,
was.
a little something. So yeah.
Well, and he and his wife, when they lived here, they had a baby, a son that only lived a couple of months, and he was buried here. So my guess is that has to do
Connect back
with
to
how
that.
how and why they or ended up,
Ended up
being
back
laid
here.
to rest
Yes.
here in Hopkinsville. But yep, they're here, and I mean, the Cayce work is something that I think can reach anyone, and there's so much to know and to learn. I feel like I know about this much about him.
Every time I come here, I feel like I learn something new about him.
I mean,
and obviously I get it a little mixed up in my head, but there's just so much that, with his life. And I mean, he did a lot outside of that too.
Oh yeah, he was like a lifelong Sunday school teacher.
Yeah.
One of the stories that people tell about, one of my favorites, is he read the Bible from cover to cover every year of his life.
Every year.
And when he was about 10 years old, he decided to do it, so he had to catch up. I mean, and so I don't know that he did it 10 times, but I mean, essentially every year he read the Bible from
And
start
not
to
just
finish.
laying on it.
Not just like, I think he
yeah.
actually read it.
He actually read, yeah.
But he did all kinds of really interesting things by accounts that we read from people who knew him. He was funny,
Yeah.
He loved to fish and he loved to garden. He was just kind of a good old boy.
Well, we were talking earlier, and it's like he was kind of a normal guy with a very unique gift.
Yes. And according to the readings, they say that we all have unique gifts. It's just being like, I don't know, aware and tuned high enough to notice, and then to do that, to follow through with it, and to not say, I don't want to be this weird guy that goes into a trance. I mean, like, to actually lean into it and accept that you can do some goodness.
And to have a grandmother that says, don't be afraid of it.
Don't be afraid
mean,
of your
that's a
father's
big-
or grandfather's ghost.
Well, that's good advice, I think. So you've got some events coming up. Obviously, you can come to the museum
Yes,
if you want to learn. Like I said, we're in this exhibit right now. There's a ton of cool photos, a lot of stories and artifacts and stuff in here.
So this we call the Cayce Nook because
Yeah.
it's like kind of sequestered away in the back of the museum. And we wanted to do our best to show some of his personal items. We have a number of things that belong to Cayce. Someone in Virginia Beach. So after he closed the hospital, they ended up starting a center, and it's called the Association for Research and Enlightenment. Big name, right?
Yeah.
And ARE for short, and the ARE is still very active. Someone told me that they hold his spiritual biography where we hold his physical, his personal biography.
okay.
And I thought that was pretty profound.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of like real, almost like mundane, normal things that belong to him. Some are more interesting than others. Like after his mother died, he described his mother as the best woman he ever knew. He carried a pair of her eyeglasses in his pocket almost all the time. We have a pair of those. We have one of his study Bibles. We have one of his actual Bibles. We have his typewriter. I mean, things like that. The camera was it wasn't his, but it was from another local photography studio. And we have a lot of pictures he took in Hopkinsville. So you kind of get to see Hopkinsville through his eyes, which is, I think, really cool.
No, I think it's a really neat.
But we try our best to kind of add in Cayce as much as we can. But every year in March, we celebrate his birthday. And we do that in different ways over time. But we're bringing back kind of a big way this year, and we're calling it Cayce Days.
Cayce Days, okay.
For years, we did the Edgar Cayce Hometown Seminar, and COVID kind of pulled the rug out from under that. So we're kind of coming back. We've been coming back a little at a time. And so now we're back with Cayce Days. It's a full, really a weekend-long seminar about Edgar Cayce and the work that he did. We have a friend coming from Virginia Beach from the Edgar Cayce Foundation.
Very
She
cool.
is an archivist, and she's going to be talking to us about readings that Cayce gave about world events in the late 1930s and 1940s.
All right.
And also about Carrie House. Carrie House is the aunt of Gertrude that was a huge supporter of Edgar and is from Hopkinsville and is the best character in the entire story. She's a real person, not just a character. Oh, but she's my favorite. And she's also buried right out there with them. So Jessica's doing a program on both of those things. We have an astrologer coming as well to talk about current astrology and what that kind of corresponds to in our like cosmic past.
Okay.
We've got a number of things going on where you can visit the schoolhouse where he went to school, and we're going to set up a tour at the cemetery to not just visit his gravesite, but other people connected to him. We've got, I think, a dramatic performance, a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And just good people coming to
And
learn.
you've got people coming from all over.
Oh, all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, kind of regional, but still coming
Yeah.
from all over. And it'll be a great weekend. It's March 21st through the 23rd, kind of as close to his birthday as we were going to get. On his birthday, though, March 18th, we're going to be playing, we're going to have a card game tournament.
Yes.
Another random side note on Edgar Cayce. He invented the card game Pit, which he invented in 1904, and it's like a commodity trading game. It moves really fast, and it is based off of the Chicago Board of Trade, and which I think there was a part of that called the Pit. Mm-hmm. And he started, he kind of designed the game, had a buddy draw the cards at the YMCA in Bowling Green when he lived there. And there are lots of different sides of the story. It was a way to kind of show how the trading worked, but also Edgar Cayce like could read everything on people's faces and in their minds if he wasn't careful. So playing poker with him wasn't any fun because he always knew what everybody had.
Oh,
and this game is real fast.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he could play honestly and enjoy it.
So you can come over here and play Pit.
On
When
March
is that?
18th.
March 18th.
Tuesday, March 18th, we're going to be playing Pit as well.
Here in the museum.
Here in the museum at
All
6
right.
o'clock.
6 o'clock, and then Edgar Cayce Days.
Cayce Days will kick off on Friday night, the 21st, at around 5 or 6. We'll kind of open the doors at 5 o'clock, and we'll have a little meet and greet, and then our first session. That'll be all day Saturday, and then into Sunday morning that weekend. All the information about Cayce Days and about the Pit tournament are on our website.
Okay. And we'll put a link to that.
Yeah.
So people can go check that out and come. And if you can't come for that stuff, still come over and check this out.
Come over.
I know you and your team here would be happy to answer questions and talk about Edgar Cayce because he's really a unique part of this community.
He is. He is. We're real proud of him. Very much fascinated by him. He's a.
Yeah.
And as far as Hopkinsville and Christian County and Kentucky as a whole are concerned, I mean, he's a name that is known worldwide.
I was to say, I've traveled around, and when I started asking around, people are like, "Oh, I've heard of him. I didn't know he was from here. Didn't know so." Yeah.
From right here.
Yeah, right.
We're proud of him.
One of Kentucky's finest.
Yeah, tell him good night every night when I leave.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Well, thank you for spending some time with us.
Absolutely, thank you.
And go visit the website, go follow them on social media, and learn more about Edgar Cayce.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.